So here is your podcast on glaciers and glacial features, and this is my favorite agent of erosion, and a lot of the pictures are from my own vacations where I dragged my poor husband to take pictures of glaciers. Little did he know. Anyway, the time when a lot of the glacial features near us were formed is during the last ice age. And an ice age is when glaciers cover more land than they do today. So today we have big ice sheets covering Greenland and Antarctica. And then we have glaciers way high up in the mountains, but during an ice age, it covers much more. Now, our cycle of ice ages began about 2 to 3 million years ago when the climate cooled. And what happens is glaciers advance and then they retreat again cyclically, often once every few 100,000 years. So glaciers have retreated back to about where they are today and then advanced and covered more of the globe dozens of times over the last few million years, back and forth and back and forth. This is a map of what North America looked like during the last glacial maximum, which was 18,000 years ago. So you can see that Massachusetts, where we live, is right about here. So we were right on the edge of that ice sheet. This is when most of the glacial features that we have in Massachusetts today were formed. So what is a glacier? It's a large mass of ice that moves slowly over land. And there's two types, but both of them form the same way. Snow doesn't melt in the summer, and so it piles up. Over time, that snow turns into crystals of ice, and then the lower layers turn to solid ice under the weight of the overlying snow. Once that happens, the glacier can start moving. The smaller of the two types of glaciers is called a valley glacier. It's long and skinny, and it's found at high elevation. It slides downhill and flows because the ice is flexible or plastic. So even though it's a solid, it can flow over rocks and through valleys. The second type of glacier is called an ice sheet. It's a lot older, a lot thicker, maybe miles thick, and covers almost an entire land mass or continent. These also flow, but they tend to flow outwards from the center like pancake batter, but much more slowly. And so in Greenland, it's flowing out from the middle. Antarctica, same thing, out. So when you hear about ice sheets, these are the ones that you hear about. Here are some pictures of valley glaciers. That's me in front of the Emerald Glacier in Yoho National Park in Canada. This is in British Columbia. It's a pretty small valley glacier that's melted back a lot because of global warming. This is the Angel Glacier. You can see the two wings, and the tail used to be a lot longer, and it's been melting back because there's more ice melting in the summer than there is accumulating in the winter. And this one's the Athabasca Glacier, also in Jasper in Canada. And you can walk on this one, so I actually got to walk up onto the glacier itself. This is the Crowfoot Glacier in Banff. So what all of these glaciers do is they basically act like an excavator, and they act like some pretty hefty earth-moving equipment. They just do it much more slowly. So the glacier will push stuff in front, it'll scrape stuff below, and it'll pick things up on the top. So it'll pick things up along the top as it falls in, it'll pick up rocks and scrape on the bottom, and it'll push stuff in front of it. Here's an example of some of the sediment that could be on the top of a glacier. This is a glacier I actually hiked to and looked down on. Glacial erosion happens in two ways, by plucking and by abrasion. So plucking is just when ice picks up rocks from the bedrock below it, and tends to do that by ice wedging. And then, as you know from weathering, abrasion is when it scrapes the bedrock. Those are the two ways it tends to erode. There are a lot of features created by glacial erosion. The first one is striations. This is one that isn't in your textbook. It's just the official word for the scratches left in rock by glacial abrasion. So here's a picture of some striations. I was standing above this rock looking down on it, and that's how I took the picture. So you can see these scratches, and they show what direction the ice was moving in. So you know it was either moving this way or it was moving this way. The next two features created by glacial erosion are U-shaped valleys and hanging valleys. So a U-shaped valley is as the glacier flows down the valley, it scoops it out. And this is going to be a very long and large feature. And then hanging valleys are little valleys carved by the side glaciers, and they're left behind way up above the valley floor. So this picture shows a U-shaped valley. Notice how wide and curvy it is compared to the V-shaped valley that's formed by a river. And then a hanging valley is a little valley that used to flow out onto the glacier, but now that the glacier is gone, it's left above the valley floor. So this right here is a little hanging valley. This here is also a hanging valley. Then there are some much smaller features created by glacial erosion: cirques, arêtes, and horns. A cirque is a bowl-shaped hollow. I like to think of it as a little ice cream scoop, like the scoop just scooped out. The arête is the sharp ridge between the cirques, and a horn is a sharpened peak. So in this picture, here's the cirque, little ice cream scoop. Here's the arête, it's the ridge, it's a line. And then here's another view of the same valley, and this is the horn. It's a peak. You'll notice right here on the other side, you have a nice hanging valley. All right, so let's do a little review of these. So what features do these pictures show? Picture 1. 2 refers to this ridge right here, and 3 to this little bowl. 4 is these. 5 is this point right here. And 6, I'm standing in it. This is my husband being goofy. 7's asking you what process picked up the rock. It was deposited later, but what picked it up? And number 7 refers to this ridge right here. Look how pretty these flowers are. I took this picture on a hike. And number 8 refers to this right here. Okay, before we do glacial deposition, let's go over the answers. So pause or rewind unless you're ready to find out what they are. Number 1 is a U-shaped valley. 2 is an arête. This is the ridge. Although if you said a horn because you thought it was the peak, that's fine. 3 is a cirque. 4 shows striations. 5 is a horn. 6, you're standing in a cirque if you have this view. The rock was picked up by plucking. This is an arête, the ridge. And this is one big U-shaped valley. You'll also notice some hanging valleys here and here, but wasn't what it was asking about. All right, that's it for the erosion part of this podcast. Stay tuned for deposition.